NewsNation political contributor Lauren Wright, Dan Turnantine, co-host of Two Ways the Morning Meeting, panelist on Two Ways the Group Chat. I watch, you should too. Olivia Reingold, staff writer for the Free Press. She wrote today, Mamdani's revolution has arrived. Nice to see all of you. I was trying to figure out how many different accents he was going to go through with each one of the various nationalities he went through.
Pretty impressive.
Very, very impressive. Olivia, you've covered this guy extensively. When you say Mamdani's revolution has arrived, what does that revolution actually mean?
Well, I would call it a revolution because I can't overstate the level of ambition here. So they see New York as just the beginning. Actually, on Election Day, we published this big story. I was able to obtain thousands of pages of internal documents from the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, which Mamdani is a dues-paying member of. It's been super important to his campaign. And they see him as just the start. They're talking about 2028. Actually, this is a group that is thinking decades ahead. They have an entire plan for the next decade, and they're already looking at ways to recreate his success.
Well, and that was sort of the point of Mehdi Hasan last night when he was on his own live stream. This was somebody who was fired from MSNBC for being too much of a bigot and a zealot, but here he is talking about what last night means.
Elon Musk called him Mamdani. The Caroline Levitt called him Zamdani. Cuomo called him Mandami. Well, guys, you're going to have to learn his name now.
Dan, what he said is that socialist is not a dirty word anymore. Is that true, to Olivia's point, beyond New York City?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think you're going to hear Roy Cooper in North Carolina or Sherrod Brown in Ohio. They're going to be saying, I'm a Spanberger and a Cheryl Democrat. Mm-hmm. They are not going to be saying that I am a Mamdani Democrat. And look, I think it's important to note, he got 50.5% of the vote. The Cuomo-Sliwa vote was almost 49%. So even in the bluest of blue states, the guy didn't blow the doors off and win by 20 points. The socialists in Minneapolis lost. Now, we've had Bernie Sanders out there now for a few years. He is a socialist.
A few decades.
A few decades. But on the national stage for almost a decade now as kind of a prominent member of our party. If we're going to win, we need Mamdani in the tent. We need his energy. The party should not turn on him.
You mean Democrats?
Democrats. Like.
So speaking of who's in that tent, right? The people who overwhelmingly voted for Mamdani was not the working class.
No,
it
educated.
was the educated young females. 84% of women aged 18 to 29 voted for Mamdani. 78% 18 to 29 overall. Almost all of educated either with college or post-grad degrees did. Lauren, the question is to you. How do young white females who are progressively liberal overwhelmingly support a guy who also sort of supports Hamas that views women as property?
Because progressive, wealthy elites who are highly educated are really the only group that can afford to have these luxury beliefs, which is what they are. They don't experience crime firsthand. They don't experience hunger firsthand. They don't experience trying to get to work on a dangerous bus where no one pays anyway, by the way. And so it's floating this conversation about this hopefulness and what could it be. And, you know, when the rubber hits the road, these ideas are not going to work, or maybe they will, and I think the effects will be disastrous. But in any case, yes, these are a lot of people that can afford to have the conversations. But
you even heard it in his victory speech last night when he spoke to the taxi drivers, the bodega drivers. I mean, it's a combination of kind of young people, the upper kind of limousine liberals they used to call them, and some of these working class immigrants who are first generation in New York. He did tap into something there. In Central Queens.
Because he's likable.
And free stuff sounds good.
Well, free stuff sounds good, and he is a generational talent as a politician. You just listen to him. This is him, no problem too large for government.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Well, they proved in Caracas and in Havana that that doesn't work, I guess would be the easiest way to say it, right, Dan? But there's a larger point here, which is, in your piece, you wrote sort of the worst thing to be called in Mamdani's New York City is a Zionist. One could argue that that's just sort of a careful play on words to say Jew, but
right.
we'll put that aside for a second. Is it fair to connect this socialist movement, this democratic socialist movement, with political Islam?
I don't know about that. What I will say is you can absolutely connect it to anti-Semitism. I mean, last night I had to consider, should I take off my Star of David? And as I was doing some interviews, you know, I noticed that people noticed it, but you don't, maybe the assumption is, oh, she's one of the anti-Zionists. But about those internal documents I was reading, I also, you know, have access to their internal chat board, and they're discussing whether the Star of David is a hate symbol. I cannot overstate just how extreme this is. Actually, the language we used is that the DSA going forward, to earn their endorsement, you will have to adopt an eliminationist policy towards Israel. There was actually language in there where to receive their endorsement, you need to not make any judgments about any violence that is, you know, Palestinians do in the name of Palestinian liberation.
It's insane. I mean, this is going to be a huge problem in 2028 and in 2026. Some of these primaries that you're going to see, I just saw just about an hour ago, Richie Torres is now going to get primaried here in New York. They're talking about trying to primary Hakeem Jeffries. We've all talked about Chuck Schumer coming up here in 2028. Democrats are going to have to get a handle on this. It's one thing to say, hey, we have concerns with, you know, civilians being killed in Israel's war. It's a whole nother thing to turn this, as you say, into anti-Semitism, into literally any sign of support for Israel has to be canceled in the Democratic Party.
Well, that's more than anti-Semitism, right? I mean, to me, anti-Semitism is you don't like somebody who likes bagels, or you don't get somebody doesn't get into a country club. This is, when you're talking about that, you're talking about genocide, which is what From the River to the Sea means, against the state of Israel. That's a whole different level.
Well, he can't even acknowledge Israel as a state that should exist.
Right. Well, he can say, and I think Cuomo pointed this out really well, as did Ben Shapiro, that he seems to have a huge opinion on what needs to happen to Benjamin Netanyahu, which is he needs to be arrested, but can't figure out what should happen with Hamas. So there you go.
Can I just say, I do think that this has potential, though. I would not discount its appeal nationwide. You look at Luigi Mangione, I mean, that guy, look at the anger in this country towards income inequality. I think that someone like Zoran, a populist like him, has a lot of potential nationwide, that movement.
It's running through both parties right now, this kind of anti-rich, anti-corporate America.
Except the anti-Semitism on the left just got elected to be mayor of New York, and on the right, it's getting run out of the party. There's a slight difference there. Dan, Lauren, Olivia, keep up the great reporting. Thank you.